You're listening to episode 10 of A Whole New You podcast. On today's show, Lori is interviewing a fellow health and wellness enthusiast about her children's book. She shares amazing insights on how to approach whole wellness with our kids. Welcome to A Whole New You podcast. I'm your co-host, Kim Maravich. I'm a registered nurse and author of the book 360 Health. I'm joined by my dear friend, Lori Biddle, a health and wellness coach certified through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Our show exists to inspire and empower women to take charge of their health with weekly tips and conversation about self-care, mindset, nutrition, fitness, and clean living. Please keep in mind that the material provided in this podcast is intended as general information only and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. We're thrilled to have you here. Let's get to the show.
Hi, everybody. I have the honor of being here today with Pamela Scanlon. She is the author of a children's book and does a lot of other really amazing things as well in the industry of health and wellness, which is actually how we found each other on Instagram, both being, in this business. And we decided to meet up for lunch and had a wonderful conversation. And I actually came home that day and I was all, lit up and excited about our talk and, had the conversation with my girls after school. How was your day? How was your day? And I was telling them, I met someone today, from Instagram, and my 13-year-old daughter stopped me right there and said, "You're not ever supposed to meet up with someone from Instagram." And she was like yelling at me. But, I assured her that we're adults. It was a business meeting. We met in a public place. But at any rate, Pamela and I that day had a wonderful conversation. And I was so very impressed with her background and just all the amazing work that she's doing. And she's here today to share a little bit about her background.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lori, for having me on your podcast. I'm really excited about this opportunity to talk to all of your listeners. And so my background in this field really started years ago, longer than I probably care to mention. I had an undergraduate degree in psychology, and when I graduated from college, I did some work as a behavioral specialist with children and teenagers. From there, I decided to pursue a certification as a personal trainer, and I worked with adults as a personal trainer for a few years in Florida. And then I decided that it was really the psychology behind the reasons why people would have which were struggling to maintain a healthy lifestyle that really intrigued me, and wanting to support people emotionally as well. So I decided to pursue a master's degree in health and wellness promotion here in Pennsylvania. And I started working as a lifestyle interventionist after that at Children's Hospital with adolescents diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And I did that for a while, and it was a really amazing experience because I got to see really firsthand the struggles that children and families are experiencing in the real world, and some of the reasons why it's difficult for them to live a healthy lifestyle that maybe some of the rest of us don't even understand. So that was an amazing experience. While I was there, I had realized that there was a really big need to help teach kids about, the reasons why they should live a healthy lifestyle, and hopes to help them develop an interest in and to begin to value healthy living in a way that was exciting for them. So I'll let you take it from there, Lori, because I'm sure you're going to have more questions for me, so I don't want to answer all your questions now.
Thank you for that. That sounds good. So the first thing we're going to get into a little bit is Pamela's book series. And the first book in the series is already available on Amazon and also on her website. And Barnes & Noble. All right. That's awesome. The Super Dynamos Fuel Up. And the first book in the series is called Max's Transformation Begins. So Pam, I'd love it if you would tell us a little bit about your book and how you've seen it help your children.
So it's funny. Like I said, I actually came up with the idea of writing a children's book series when I worked at Children's Hospital. I really wanted to create a fun way for kids to kind of expand their understanding of why it's important to live a healthy lifestyle and to make healthy choices and to eat their vegetables. And I wanted the book series as a tool for me to use as a professional. Then I became a mom, and when I had my own children, I was like, oh my God, I have to write this book because I need a tool to get my kids to eat their vegetables. You know, I mean, the reality is it's hard. So when my kids were young, what I started doing was, after my struggle, I was struggling a lot, as all moms do. And, I sat down one day and was kind of going through all of my notes. What did I learn when I was working in this field? What was really, helping? What helped me as a professional to make changes in these kids? And to be honest with you, it was the educational piece that I found that kids were most responsive to. And so I thought, okay, that's it. I'm going to come armed and ready at my dinner table with a list of the benefits that my kids are going to receive if they eat this, certain foods on their plate. So I did. I came to the table armed and ready with this, description of the what they're going to gain by eating each food. So for example, I had a sweet potato on the plate, and I said to my son, if you eat this sweet potato, you're going to be able to run so super fast at soccer. It's going to be amazing. And his eyes lit up, his eyebrows raised. What? He said, what? And it wasn't me lecturing him about it. It was him learning and understanding that there's actually a benefit that was meaningful to him as to why he should eat the sweet potato. And then I started to teach them about protein. And then my two boys, at the time I had two, would start putting their arms up in the air and hold up big muscles. And you mean if I eat the protein on my plate, if I eat this fish or if I eat this chicken, I'm going to get big muscles like Daddy? And I said, yes. And they ate the chicken, or they eat the fish, or they'd eat the sweet potatoes, or they eat the broccoli. And it was amazing. And I couldn't believe it. It was like, okay, now this is fun. We turned all that frustration that I was feeling into fun. And so then I knew I had to write the book. And that's really how it started.
Oh, that's such a good story. And that is the struggle. You just captured that, kids, they need a different perspective on vegetables. And I love that your book does this for them. So that is how, in your household, you've seen this all kind of firsthand. But I know you've gotten out and had some book readings and dealt with kids outside of your home. And I'd love to hear about the impact you've seen on them.
So just last night, I was doing a book reading at the local women's shelter. And after we read the story, we did a bunch of activities. And this adorable little 6-year-old girl walked over to me and she said, Miss Pam. And I said, yeah. And she didn't want anybody else to hear her. She was doing this very, quietly, just while everybody else was kind of bustling and getting ready to go. She kind of snuck over and she said, but I don't like vegetables and I don't like water. And I said to her, well, that's okay, because a lot of people don't like vegetables and don't like water. I said, but a lot of times it's because they don't understand that it helps them feel like their most super self. And I said, did you like learning and finding out that vegetables and water help you feel like like not only like your super self, but will help you support you to discover your special superpower. And her eyes looked at me and they just were huge and so precious. And she said, yes, I really did. And I said, well, how about we make a deal? You keep an open mind. And now that you are understanding the benefits of eating them or drinking water differently, maybe you'll be more, they'll taste a little differently to you, and you might like them a little bit more. And she looked at me and she said, I'm going to try them again.
Oh, I love that story. It's so good. I know. Just for them to have that desire and again, to look at it a different way. I think you hit it right on the head again with the education piece, because that's something I noticed with my kids too. Going through IIN, I would just communicate to them what I was learning. And they have a hunger for that. They have a hunger for the knowledge and the understanding. And instead of coming at them from a restrictive standpoint, which a lot of moms do, because the moms may know, why they're restricting certain foods and why they're promoting others. But the kids don't really understand, and they just look at, as I'm not allowed to have this, or, this is what my mom wants me to eat. So one of two things happen. Either, kids are rebellious against the things that you want them to eat, or, it's got to backfire in your face if you're just restricting too much because, I guess it all comes back to the rebellion thing. And they're going to go to their friend's house and eat it all there anyway, or in the lunch line or any of those things. So the education is so key.
Yeah, I mean, kids definitely want to feel a sense of autonomy, right? They want to feel like they're in control. So if you put too many restrictions on them, they are going to rebel. But if you educate them and then give them some freedom to be able to make their own decisions, they're much more likely to experiment.
Yes, definitely. So, from your professional and personal experience with all of this, what are some tips? And I think we even just covered a few of them, but what are some other tips and tricks? We love tips and tricks on this podcast for moms because we know everyone's busy and, it's hard to get started with this stuff. So, what advice could you give the rest of us, based on what you've seen to get kids more interested?
So I'm not sure if I should share this story or not, but so here I am writing this books series, the entire point of which is to encourage kids to make healthy choices. And last May, I attended a summit in DC, and one of the experts on the panel said that it was the last day of the summit. It was a 3-day summit, and it was the last summit of the entire or the last seminar of the entire summit. And the woman sat on the panel and said, I think that every single person in this room is going to get very mad at me because what I'm going to say, you are not going to like. And we all looked at each other and said, okay, what is she going to say? And she said, all of you who are encouraging kids to eat healthy food are shooting yourselves in the foot. And I just kind of was taken aback and I thought, what is she talking about? And she said her advice was to not focus on health. And at first, that was a hard pill to swallow. And that is all we're doing. And I have to say that over the course of now almost a year, I did a lot of peeling back the layers of what it is to me that's been able to motivate me for so long. Because when I was growing up, I dealt with my own body image issues, and I had dealt with emotional eating, a lot of which came from emotions that I experienced when my parents divorced when I was 6, and I was the oldest of 3 children. So I had a lot of emotions I was trying to process at an early age that I didn't understand. So, I felt very alone a lot of the time. So I had a lot of insecurities and a lot of things that I was dealing with on my own until I was about 17. And when I was 17, I hated exercise, everything. It's just so funny to think about what my life looks like now as opposed to then, and what my passions are now as opposed to what I didn't like then. But when I was 17, I remember I was sitting across the table at lunch from my two best friends who were also were struggling with eating disorders, and thinking to myself, how is it that these two such gorgeous girls don't see what I see when I look at them? And, how could they be making these decisions that are actually causing harm because they want to make themselves more likable or worthy of other people's, approval or attention or love? And that day I went back home and I looked in my own mirror and looked at myself in a whole new light. And I saw this reflection of this person instead of the flawed girl that I had always seen before. I saw my body truly as a gift from God. And I thought, why am I doing this to myself? And in that moment, I decided that my body was worthy of love. And really the only person that I needed to change myself for was me. And I needed to embrace and accept with greater compassion the gift that God had given me. And that was the day that everything started to change for me. And then I saw that the way that I eat, the way that if I chose to move and how I would move was all an act of love. So after she told me not to use health anymore, I thought, it's not even health that motivates me. While health is an amazing benefit, it's really that I want to honor the gift of my body that I've been given. And I thought, health doesn't resonate with kids either. She was absolutely right. If I tell my kids they're going to be healthy and they're already healthy kids, they don't get that. It's not meaningful to them. But if I can come up with, and these are, to answer your question, Lori, my couple of, tips or pieces of advice that I would offer to parents is to not focus on health, but to focus on the benefits of eating in a healthy way that is meaningful to your children. So using fun language, it's huge. Being able to tie it to their life in a way that will help create value. So, if it is that they play soccer, or that, all of our kids these days are so involved in activities. So they need energy, they need speed, they need strength, they need all of those things. So if you start talking along those lines, then, then they start to understand that, and I also talk in the language of love now, but they're loving themselves because they love their sport, right? And so they're loving their bodies, and it empowers them to be able to do better and show up better in their sport or in, the piano, whatever it is that they're doing, whatever's meaningful to them. And then all of a sudden, the reason behind, the motivation behind their choices becomes meaningful to them as opposed to you. And that is huge.
That's just so good. Oh, it's just so good. And it's so in line with what we talk about, Kim and I all the time on this podcast about whole wellness. And that's not just for us moms. That's for our children too. It's looking at the whole person. It's not just food and exercise, which are always important, but like making it relatable to them. And that's true for everybody. Food and exercise, those words are so overused at this point, and it doesn't create a sense of joy for people to hear, food and exercise. But looking at the big picture and relating it to your own life and your own children, that is just going to be such a powerful tool going forward. So I thank you so much for sharing that perspective and those tools. Wonderful. Now, I know when you started the children's book series, your boys were little. And, it was kind of where you were at that point. And now your kids are, I believe, the same age as mine, right? 11, 13. Yes?
I have a 7-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 12-year-old.
7, 10, no. 7, 10, 11.
And 12.
Okay.
7, 10, and 12.
7, 10, and 12. All right. So I have 11 and 13. So we're like right in a line there. but yeah, as our kids get older, the same message is there, but some things start to change, especially in my household these next few years with girls, going back to what Pam was just talking about, body issues and, all of that is starting to become very, very real. And I know, along with myself and in her message is starting to look more towards that too, and starting to get into an older group of children, which the book that we've been discussing, Max's Transformation Begins, is aimed at K through third. But we also were talking about how, reading it with older children just kind of sets the tone for awesome discussion, which you don't always get with the younger kids. So, it's good for a lot of different ages. But as we talked about getting into some of the body image, that's a little deep probably for, for the third graders, but super important in this world now, and it always has been, as we talked about looking around our lunch table and seeing a lot of our friends, struggling with eating disorders. It's always been there, but I don't know if this day and age, if it's the social media, there's a lot of added pressures on these children. And I just think what a wonderful thing to take these tools and start bringing them to an older crowd. And I think that's what Pam's working on now. This is her latest work. So I'll let her share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'll say two things there. One, the blog that I write a blog. It's on my website. My website address is PamelaPowerScanlon.com. And the blog name is, and the kind of my whole platform is based on now living a love-motivated lifestyle. And when I say that, it comes back to that story I just shared, where when your motivation behind living a healthy lifestyle is rooted in love, it's a very different perspective than what we've been taught from our society, from mainstream culture, which is that we should be doing this to become beautiful. But my whole platform is that we already are beautiful, and we make healthy choices to care for the beautiful spirits, bodies, and minds that we already have. And I think, my feeling with body image, and especially teenage girls today, is that there is a better way. And yes, I am moving now into, I just was finished getting my certification to do mindfulness for teenagers, and I'm going to be offering classes to local students, but I will also be writing articles for a little, the teenage population of girls too, because I grew up with body image issues, and I know what that's like. All my childhood, I wanted to be a dancer, but I wouldn't take dance lessons because I was too embarrassed to be seen in a leotard. If my daughter came to me now, I would just be, like, what? But I truly didn't do it because so I know what that feels like. I know, and unfortunately, it's not changed much since we were in the 80s. It may even have gotten worse now. But the message that I'm sending on my blog to moms, to the little ones that I'm talking to through my book, workshops that I'm doing and events that I'm holding, and the message that I'm hoping to be able to also share with a little bit of an older population next is that, living a healthy lifestyle should not be about fixing ourselves. Living a healthy lifestyle should be about preserving the whole self that we already are coming to table being. It's a way for us to show ourselves, like I said before, love for the bodies, the minds, and the spirits that we've been given. And something that I was teaching yesterday to these little kids was interesting because I was talking to them about how, the word health literally never came into the conversation in an hour. It was actually over an hour. It's about an hour and 10-minute event that we did last night. But they were talking about, of course, food and nutrition, and talking about their body, and then they said their minds were everything. And it was so interesting because nobody in the room was addressing their spirit. So then once the activities really that we were doing following the book reading went underway, I was focusing on the spirit, and their little eyes were opening up. Oh, that's my spirit. My feelings are, my spirit allows me to, what I told them was it's the invisible part of themselves that was born beautiful and born whole. And no matter what they do, no matter what choices they make when they're children, teenagers, or adults, that spirit that they truly are will never change. And that doing things like the exercise that we did, which is called grounding in love, it's a meditation that I shared with them, allows them to connect with that spirit. And it's something that they can do anytime, anywhere. And I asked the children, I said, after we did the meditation, I said, when in your life do you think that you could do this and it would make you feel better? And they said, when we're confused, when we're being bullied, when we're scared. One little boy said, I want to do this a lot because I think it will help me when I'm nervous, and I get nervous a lot. It was so sweet. So, all that, when we're thinking about healthy living and mainstream culture, we turn on the TV and it's, here's a new diet trend, here's a new exercise trend. But how about the trends that are addressing our emotional and our spiritual well-being? And the fact that right now, depression and eating disorders and loneliness, even suicide is on the rise in our youth. We need to be addressing our kids' whole health, but in my opinion, from a way where love is the foundation, not the idea that we need to make ourselves somehow more beautiful or more acceptable or more worthy of other people's attentions or likes.
Yes. Such an amazing point. And another thing that, really plagues our children these days is stress. And that plays into your health and overall well-being so much. And, when I hear little kids, I told you I taught Sunday school second grade. So I spent a lot of time with second graders for about 5 years. And what does a second grader have to be stressed about? Like when I hear the word stress out of little kids' mouths, it just makes me so sad. And maybe it's just because they're hearing it, from their parents and from our culture and on the TV. And it's just, it's just a word. I get that. But I think they feel it too. And what I love about this mindfulness and the meditation, it gives them such a powerful tool in their toolbox in those moments to deal with it. And our kids need that. So Pam actually is going to run through with us today a little exercise. I think this one is just a minute or so that you can do anytime, anywhere, and just to kind of calm your mind. And I'm excited for it because as you've heard here, since you've been listening, she has a very soothing voice. So she's like the perfect person to lead something like this. So I'm going to close my eyes and do it along with you.
So it's funny, I wrote this. This is going to be out in my blog post today. So if anybody would like this, it will be live this afternoon, and you can find it again on my website, PamelaPowerScanlon.com. But 2 weeks ago, this is an exercise that I used to do, and I came up with this exercise when I was on vacation a few years ago, and to be honest with you, I just kind of forgot about it. I'm always trying new things. So I'm sure I just came up with something new and just kind of let this one go for a while. And I was on vacation 2 weeks ago. And when I was away and I was in this beautiful, serene location, I remembered, oh yeah, I should be doing that again. So, and ironically, I call it the Miracle Island of this exercise. I call it Miracle Island of Peace and Quiet. And I laugh because when we came back from vacation, as everyone in the Pittsburgh area knows, the kids were canceled from school for 3 days. So, I'm a work-at-home mom. The kids are off school for 3 days. I'm trying to play catch up in the house, trying to play catch up with work, trying to create new content for work so I stay on top of it. So needless to say, with 3 boys in the house, the clutter, the chaos, and all the mess, I was a little bit tense. So I say it was not just a coincidence that Miracle Island peace and quiet exercise came back into my mind when it did. I think my boys were very relieved that I remembered how to do that little exercise. So, so this is really a great exercise that you can do anytime and anywhere. And I have a young girl who works, she actually works for Google, and she does some editing for me sometime, and she said, she typed it for me, and I didn't know that she was actually practicing it. And she said, hey, I just want to let you know that I tried that exercise that when I proofread your blog post, I tried it. It really works. Thank you. So it really does work. It's something you can do whether or not you have children, but, and it only really takes a minute. You know, if you want it to last longer, it can, but all it requires is a minute of your time, some willingness, and a little self-love. So if everybody who's listening would like to take just a moment, hopefully you're not driving, and if you're driving, you might want to do it later. But again, you can find it on my website, so I will have it live, and you can do it again. And the other nice thing about this exercise is that once you've read through it on your own, or you've listened to it now, perhaps you'll remember how to do it. So you can do it anywhere. You can do it alone by yourself and just go through the steps in your mind. So they'll be, they're very easy to remember. So we'll go ahead and start. So I'd invite everyone to close their eyes wherever you are, in whatever position that you're in, whether you're sitting or standing or lying down, and just notice how your body is feeling. And with your mouth closed, slowly take in one deep breath in through your nose, allowing soothing, replenishing oxygen to fill your whole belly and move up into your lungs. Holding it for just a second, and then nice and slowly exhale all the way out. And then on your next inhale, allow your shoulders to drop. Really notice how your shoulders are feeling right now, and try to allow them to just drop. And then relax your head. And relax the sides of your mouth. Relax your tongue. And relax your hands. Now imagine the sound of your breath that's moving in and out of your nose in a relaxed rhythm is the sound of the ocean waves. Imagine yourself sitting on a peaceful, quiet, deserted island. Notice the beautiful scenery all around you. The water, the sand, the trees. Feel the soft sand under you supporting you. The only thing that you hear right now, the only sound, is the sound of the waves. Notice the expansiveness of the blue sky. Now I invite you to gently, just slightly tilt your head back and imagine the warm sun caressing your face. You may notice a tingling sensation. And if you do, imagine that sensation as a soft breeze, soothing and recharging your whole body. Allow yourself to bask in the peaceful feeling this visualization brings for you as long as you can. And then when you're finished, you can gently open your eyes and smile with intention. And then hold on to that smile as long as you can the rest of the day.
Well, that definitely made me smile. I woke up, whoa, wait a minute, I'm in the middle of a podcast. I thought I was on an island. That was very nice, very nice. And I imagine that's helpful too, like before bed for a kid who needs to kind of unwind. And, you know, I know my daughter always tells me, okay, what should I imagine when she closes her eyes? Because she, you know, she went through that phase of like being scared of things and closing your eyes and seeing scary things. So, you know, I always tell her, close your eyes and see rainbows and butterflies and green grass. But this takes it to a whole nother level, bringing the breathing into it and just really calming down their bodies and preparing for sleep. And using it anytime during the day, you know, to calm yourself down. And this 1 minute makes that really doable. You know, even us moms, just close yourself in the bathroom for a minute. You can do that. And if they're calling you, just tone them out and listen to the ocean waves.
Exactly.
It's so good. Well, thank you for sharing that all with us today, Pam. Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
No, just, you know, if anybody is interested in, if you live in the Pittsburgh area and you have a teenager or an adolescent, actually the class is for 10 to 15-year-olds, and it's going to be starting at the end of February, you know, and the course is actually designed for children who are experiencing stress. But, you know, my older son went through a period of time where he was struggling with some pretty good anxiety. And it was actually his experience and me finding that the thing that got him through that time was when I was doing some mindfulness practices with him. And then my other son doesn't have much stress or anxiety that he deals with on a regular basis. You know, nothing chronic, but all kids have stress and all kids have anxiety. And he's going to do the class too because he's, interestingly enough, realized that he loves to meditate. And, you know, he just kind of tends to be a worrier, just about everybody else. And he's really highly sensitive child. So he always wants to make sure that everybody else is okay. And this has been a really nice, me teaching him some of these exercises, a really nice way for him to learn how to take care of himself too, which I'm constantly reminding him that is an important thing to be mindful of, especially as he's, you know, getting older and there's so much going on that he needs to take moments here and there to take care of himself when he's starting to feel, you know, a little bit out of control or triggered or worrying too much about other people, other people's feelings and needs.
Don't we all?
Mm-hmm,
Don't we all?
exactly. So you can find out about that class on my Facebook page or on my website. My Facebook page is Pamela Power Scanlon, or you can find my business Facebook at Pamela Power Inspired. There's an invitation there, but you can just email me directly too. And the class will be held in Cranberry Township. My email is pamela@PamelaPowerScanlon.com. Yes, it's a little long. If you're interested in my book or a book reading, my son actually started a tour. He saved up $500 of his own money and decided that he wanted to use the money to buy as many copies of the books as that he can and donate them to kids. And so last night's visit to the women's shelter was actually book tour stop number 1. So if you know of an organization or a school that would like to have us out, and my son will bring the books along and donate them to the children there, please feel free to reach out to me. If you want a copy of the book for your own children, you can find that again on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com or my own website. And I would also love for you to check out my blog, because the blog is really for moms, mainly because, let's face it, if we're not feeling our best and taking care of ourselves, then we can't be the role models that our children need us to be. And yes, moms, we have been told that, you know, it's selfish, or for some reason it's like an ingrained belief that if we're taking care of ourselves, we're selfish, but we're not. When you realize that We are their best role models. They're learning by us, especially our daughters, right? Well, I don't have a daughter, but your daughters. And so self-care is not selfish, it's selfless, because you are their teacher and they learn more by what you do than what you say. So feel free to hop on to my blog if the idea of living a more love-motivated lifestyle appeals to you, and I will help you do just that.
What an important message. And thank you so much for being here today and sharing it with all of us. I will also put some links to where to find Pamela on the show notes for your convenience, but we mentioned them a couple times throughout the podcast. And I know that I get her newsletter, and every time I get it, I absolutely enjoy every minute of it. And I hope that you do too. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Pamela.
That's it for today. For more from Lori, go to simplyempoweredllc.com. For more from Kim, you can go to kimmaravich.com. We're always open to listener questions or suggestions for the show. You can email those to contact@awholenewyoupodcast.com. We'd also love it if you joined our Facebook community and followed us on Instagram. Just search for A Whole New You Podcast. And if you'd be so kind as to leave us a review in iTunes, we'd really appreciate it so more people can find our show and join our community. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast as well. See you next week.